Today I'm going to talk about some of the things that I actually find quite difficult with the FX6. I absolutely love it as a camera, but I come from a mirrorless background, and more specifically I come from a faking it until you make it kind of background. So I'm very much self-taught, if you can call it that, and the FX6 represents a bit of a paradigm shift in terms of how I actually operate a camera. So I'm going to discuss some of that in a bit more detail. Have you noticed that a lot of YouTubers these days say, let's get into it at the beginning of their videos? I know that one or two kind of coined that phrase and incorporated it into part of their brand, but now it seems that everyone's saying it, and I don't want to fall into that trap. So let's get into it. I have a sneaking suspicion that I've only been using my camera to some of its potential. It has two main modes of operation. Custom mode, which is sort of about as similar to a mirrorless camera operates as it'll get, and then something called Cine EI mode, which for all the YouTube videos that I've watched and for all the people that I've reached out to and who've given me extremely detailed, patient explanations on Facebook groups and forums, I still just can't get my head around. Because I don't come from a film or a cine background, getting my head around how Cine EI operates has actually just proven beyond my capabilities. Perhaps I'm getting stupider. Cine EI is a mode that lets the camera make the most of its dynamic range by shooting in S-Log3. From what I understand, it kind of harks back to the days of film cameras, which is just, completely beyond me. I've never used a film camera for video. Oh, actually that's not true. I used a Super 16 once. I think because of that fundamental gap in my experience and knowledge, just trying to understand it, I just can't. It's like, it really is like, I just can't do it. Don't know why. But anyway, there's this great big mode that represents about 50% of this camera's functionality that's just completely out of reach for me. So what I'm going to try and do this next week is force myself to understand it. Any video I shoot in the next 7 days on the FX6 is going to be in this Cine EI mode, and who knows what's going to happen. The good thing is, because of this camera's auto ND, I'm sure it will by and large get the exposure right. What things I'm not sure about are things like sensor gain, exposure indexes, making sure that the monitor LUT versus the base look are all doing what I want them to do. Basically what I want is to record in S-Log3, view an M-LUT on the viewfinder, and then apply that same LUT in post once it's in Final Cut Pro. Which should be easy, it should be easy. Another thing I'm slightly struggling with this camera is its lack of image stabilization. I realized how spoiled I was by the Sony A7SIII. Between its IBIS and its active stabilization, it was so good. You could handheld most shots, unless I was actually having to run after a subject. The stabilization was completely passable, and I wouldn't have to apply stabilization in software afterwards. But with the FX6, not having any built-in stabilization actually makes the kind of work that I make quite difficult. I'm going to try and get better at using a tripod, because that would immediately help a lot. I've also got a monopod that I might try, because that's kind of a bit more mobile and a bit more portable, and that could help a lot. Also, I need to try and get the hang of how the gyro stabilization works and make sure the clips are recorded with gyro data reliably. At the moment it's been a bit hit and miss for me, which I'm sure is 100% user error, like all of my problems probably. Like I said in my last video though, it's not all bad news regarding stabilization. The camera's mass and its ergonomics really do help stabilize those small jitters. The last thing I'm finding slightly tricky with this camera compared to the A7S3 is the audio situation. In theory, it should have a lot more audio options. It has 2 XLR inputs and it has timecode out. I think partly that's the trouble though. Because it has XLR inputs, my shotgun mic, a Deity D3 Pro, just has a mini jack output, and the supplied mini jack to XLR adapter doesn't seem to work for some reason, and it's out of warranty, of course. So I've been trying to work around the audio on the camera. Also, because it's a pro cine cam, I kind of have felt obliged to raise my game sound-wise, but that's put me into a bracket again outside of my experience or knowledge. So trying to work out things like jam syncing timecode devices, just timecode in general actually, like that's all industry standard stuff that I've never encountered or experienced before. So I'm trying to teach myself as I go, and it's fine. I'm suffering from a terrible case of timecode drift at the moment, even with my posh Tentacle Track-E and Sync E devices. but I'm sure I'll get to the bottom of it one way or another. I've also got a Deity S2 shotgun mic on order, which again will just give me some more audio options. That should be here in the next few days, so I'll be experimenting with that. That will plug in natively to the FX6's XLR inputs, powered by 48-volt phantom power, and will mean no messing around with adapters or recharging batteries or anything like that, and should create great quality sound. It will also mean that the audio is hard baked into the video track, rather than my workflow at the moment, where I record onto the Tentacle Track-E and then sync it in post, which is a bit, it's not a big deal, but it's a bit of a fiddle. I just want to make my workflow as simple as possible. And I need to, because I'm not a good enough camera operator, focus puller, director, audio guy to make everything work unless it is just super, super straightforward. Basically, I want to lean on the power of the FX6 as a creative tool to free myself up to concentrate on creating the most beautiful video that I can. Is that too much to ask? It sounds like I'm picking apart the camera and finding its flaws, but that's really not what I'm trying to make this video about. I think really it's more of a reflection on the limits of my own expertise and familiarity with the camera. And actually, though some things are a bit frustrating, it's also a real pleasure learning how to use something and learning how to get good at something and learning new things. Like that, just continual learning is kind of exhilarating. In my last video, I realized that mostly I sat looking like this when speaking to everyone. It's because I had the monitor on top of the camera and was just staring at myself, staring at me in like an endless infinity mirror loop. This time I've tried to make sure that I'm actually focused on the lens. Maybe that'll improve it. Well, I think that's me done for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and well done if you made it this far. If you'd like to subscribe, that'd be sweet. I'm quite impressed with myself for making it this far. I've recorded for 33 minutes. Hopefully from that I'll get 2 or 3 minutes of usable footage. Here's hoping. And so I'll say thank you and bye.